to be here with all of you today. I'm Kat Banakis. I am the rector at St. Luke's Episcopal here in Evanston. And in my faith tradition, our scriptures contain the story of Pentecost, a time when people were gathered for Shavuot, the Festival of Weeks, and the Holy One, blessed be he and peace be upon him, spoke to people, each in their own language. And they only realized that they had all heard the same thing in speaking to one another. Today, you are going to hear an outcome of a Pentecost event, of different faith traditions and communities in Evanston, each hearing something of the same spirit about reparations, and realizing that we could do more substantially and more faithfully by coming together. In our program today, you're going to hear from three groups. You'll hear from elected officials who will speak about reparations from a policy perspective at the local and national level. You'll hear from the people who created the vessels and vehicles for reparations in Evanston, without which we would not be here today. We would have no place to give our love and our hope and our apology without them. Finally, you will hear representatives from the 16 faith communities in Evanston who will read and sign a reparations commitment statement addressing truth-telling and financial contributions. We look forward to gathering together again in January 2023 to count up our initial contributions to reparations. We are well aware that no matter what we do and raise, it will not be enough to overcome the last centuries of harm done and continuing to be done to Black Evanstonians, much less Black Americans. But it is a first step in good faith of confession, material repentance, and love of neighbor, as our traditions, each in their own way, empower and instruct us to do. And with that, I welcome Eileen Wiviot, head pastor of Unitarian Church in Evanston, who will be our MC for today.
Welcome, good people. Thank you for coming out today. We're so pleased to have you with us in this celebratory and also solemn and earnest event. We are here to support reparations, reconciliation, and repair in Evanston and beyond. On behalf of the Evanston Interfaith clergy and leaders, we are so appreciative of this community, of all of you, and your willingness to show up and fight for justice and equity as a profound act of faith. We are grateful for the speakers who are here today. I'm going to introduce them live and pre-recorded. We were going to start with Mayor Biss, who's not quite here yet, so we're going to have him loop in at the end. We'll start with recorded messages from Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, followed by a message from Robin Rue Simmons, former 5th Ward Alderman of the city of Evanston, the architect of reparations here in Evanston and beyond. She's also just started a not-for-profit that helps other municipalities bring reparations plans to their communities, their local communities. She's currently in New York right now at the Tribeca Film Festival, showing the film The Big Payback, a documentary about Evanston's groundbreaking reparations work, which is serving as a model for other communities. Following Robin's message will be Dino Robinson, who is also in New York with Robin. He serves as the current chair of the Reparations Stakeholders Authority of Evanston, their board, and he has been instrumental in many ways in our community about learning the history of harm that has been done. After the recordings, we'll hear from Matt Feldman, a member of Beth Emmet, the Free Synagogue, who has consulted the Reparations Stakeholders Authority and has been instrumental in helping predominantly white faith communities to begin to examine our shared history and work toward repairing harm. And then finally, we'll hear from Mayor Biss. Oh, you're here. Actually, come on up, Mayor Biss. You want to start us off? Sorry, do you need a minute? Welcome, Mayor Biss. Thank you for being here.
Well, good afternoon. Here I am. Thank you very much to everyone for putting this show of support and illustration of commitment together as we stand here in June, proud of what we have achieved as a community on the critical issue of reparations, proud of what we've acknowledged about our own sins, the debt that we have as a city accrued based upon our immoral and heinous acts. Proud of the acknowledgement that having accrued that debt, now we got to pay it back. Now we have a moral responsibility to pay it back. And proud of the honesty with which we've begun, saying that we have taken a very, very small step on what is going to necessarily be a lengthy journey. But I think as we acknowledge the length of that journey and the size of the step taken so far, that presents us with a new responsibility, because the urgency of this project is not one that allows us to take a very, very small step every year for the next 500 years and hope for the best. That urgency requires us to marshal the resources to do what's needed far more quickly than that. And I think that as positive as what we've done so far is, it doesn't yet say that we're on the trajectory to get where we need to go when we have a moral responsibility to get there. And so here we are with a lot of people who have come together and said, we as a community are going to take on that responsibility, figure out a way to marshal those resources, and do that critical, morally required work. I'm here as the mayor to say the city is going to be a focal point of that work. We do not declare victory and stop. We declare that we are going to continue finding the resources, doing the research, partnering with the community, and fulfilling that moral obligation that we have named for ourselves. But I'm also here to say we welcome all the help we can get, because the magnitude of the task is such that that help is going to be needed. And so thank you to everyone who is here today to offer to step up to be a part of that work. Thank you to everyone who sees that not only is it our city government that, because of our past, has a moral responsibility to lead that work, but each of us who live here, because of the role that we play in the fabric of this community, and therefore, whether we like it or not, or acknowledge it or not, our own participation in that history have a mutual and shared responsibility to move forward together. So this is a fundamental part of what our city needs to do. And I will just end by observing what has been said often before, but I think needs to be said again, which is that our whole nation is way behind on this issue and is looking to us for leadership. And when you go first like this, there's an additional responsibility, not only, yes, because you can be a beacon of hope for so many others, and in fact, that which we have done so far has in fact spurred other communities to begin to take similar steps. But for a moment, let me just be negative and say, if you mess it up, you messed up for everybody else too. Because the eyes of the nation are on us, we've got an especially critical need to be successful. Thank you to everybody here this afternoon who's committed to that success. Thank you to everyone here this afternoon who's committed to us righting that wrong. And thank you to everyone here this afternoon who says that now is not the time for patience. Now is the time for action. We must repay the debt. Thank you very much.
I just want to say one thing. Thank you, Mayor Biss, for your inspiring words. I just want to say one thing. We're actually not showing any videos here because we were a little too hopeful that we'd be able to show videos in the broad daylight. Didn't work. But you're going to hear, which is more important, the words of Representative Schakowsky and Dino and Robin. But those of you watching at home will be able to see the videos.
Hi, it's Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky. And I want to thank the Interfaith Clergy Association and my Rabbi London. I'm a so proud member of Beth Emmet Synagogue for inviting me to say a few words. This event on reparations is indicative of why I am so proud to be a resident of the city of Evanston, and that's been for about 50 years now, just celebrating half a century as an Evanstonian. And the work that you do to bring our community together and have for so many years is so incredibly important. But Evanston is really leading the way, literally, when it comes to the issue of reparations. And it has been just so important to be a leader in this country, to actually put into action a reparations program. So I want to congratulate all those who have been involved in actually making this happen and then working together to carry it forward. In the Congress of the United States, my colleague Sheila Jackson-Lee has introduced H.R. 40, which is a reparations bill nationally, that we have to acknowledge the legacy of slavery in this country and act to do something about it. Now, her legislation, which has been introduced since the late 1980s, has finally made it past the Judiciary Committee. It passed out of committee for the first time in history. This is something that the President of the United States does support, and we know that we need to make sure that we can pass it in the House and pass it in the Senate. It doesn't set actually what reparations will look like, but creates a process to figure out exactly the best ways for us to do that. And so I just want to thank you so much for laying the groundwork for this important conversation that we have all over the country. The legacy lives with us today. We know that so many people, even in our own community, feel discrimination, feel the legacy of slavery in terms of housing and disparities in healthcare and disparities in income. We have an opportunity to do something about it, and it is the city of Evanston that will show us the way. Thank you.
We're switching it up a bit between live and recorded. I'm live. So I'm grateful to the Interfaith Clergy and Leaders for inviting me to speak today. I have had the honor of supporting a number of aspects of local reparations here in Evanston, and as a result of that, working around the country with some of the most amazing people I've ever encountered. And this issue is essential to the healing of our society. As you've heard, what we're doing in Evanston will not only bring our community closer together, what we're doing here is also serving as an inspiration to over 100 communities that either are in the process of passing some form of reparations ordinance, having religious institutions that are working on reparations, or philanthropic groups working on reparations around the country. And that's only the count as of a couple of days ago. And the commitment that the Interfaith Clergy and Leaders are making today will raise Evanston reparations to an even higher plane and provide even greater opportunity to repair the harm. In my work in supporting reparations, I've learned a lot about the harm done to our Black citizens and what reparations are for, and I want to take a few minutes to share what I have learned. Reparations is not just about the enduring harm inflicted by the transatlantic slave trade, the domestic slave trade, and almost 250 years of slavery. It is not just about enduring harm inflicted by Jim Crow. It is not just about the continuing harm inflicted by mass incarceration. It is not just about continuing harm inflicted through the denial of fair housing. It is not just about continuing harm inflicted through denial of access to health care. It is not just about continuing harm inflicted through the denial of access to education. It is not just the continuing harm inflicted through the denial of access to proper nutrition. It is not just the harm about continuing the harm inflicted through the denial of access to jobs, not just the harm inflicted by the denial of equal justice under the law. It is not just the continuing harm inflicted through denial of opportunity to build generational wealth, not just the harm inflicted by horrendous acts such as the hanging of nooses outside of Haven Middle School. It's about all of these things and about the daily trauma and indignities that are experienced by being Black in this country, and yes, even here in Evanston. Reparations is entirely about what is happening in our city today, and it's our responsibilities collectively to acknowledge these continuing harms and commit to righting them. That's what reparations is about, and why so many of us who are faith-based lay volunteers across the city and the country are so committed to action. An ETHS student stood here in this square a few weeks ago and asked a largely white audience why it should be that she and her family are constantly subject to trauma because of the color of their skin. And she challenged us to stop talking about it and to act. So let's act now and change our city for the better by becoming the kind of community we all know Evanston should be. Thank you very much.
We're going to hear the last two videos. We know it's a little hard to hear. It's as loud as it can go. So if you need to come a little bit closer, come on up. This is where the amplifier is.
Hi, and good afternoon, attendees at this interfaith event in support of reparations, reconciliation, and repair. My name is Dino Robinson, current chair of the Reparations Stakeholder Authority of Evanston, known as the RSAE. This is an independent nonprofit entity overseeing the reparations funds held at the Evanston Community Foundation. I regret that I cannot be here in person, but I send my best and appreciation for the support of Evanston's faith community rising to this important work. The RSAE board consists of members from the Evanston's known historically Black entities and community members. We refer to them as stakeholders. Board members serve up to 3-year terms and rotate off on staggered years to facilitate broad participation. It is the charge of the RSAE board to serve as a sounding board of needs, ideas, grievances, and directions generated from the local Black community. Compile the needs, ideas, grievances, and direction from the stakeholder community, and share findings to the Evanston Community Foundation and to the City of Evanston Reparations Committee. Provide a forum and process to consider remedy proposals and make stakeholder-directed recommendations of ECF reparations fund allocations that benefit recipients, program and initiatives, and organizations. The RSAE focuses on initiatives related to education and cultural initiatives, housing initiatives, health and wellness, and economic development, all guided from input and prioritized by Evanston's harmed community. As we have continued to engage, we have all found that this important work has generated many opinions and approaches, locally, nationally, and globally. From the perspectives of all demographics, addressing reparations related to the Black experience have been engaging, confrontational, and rewarding. We all can agree when there is a movement for transformative change, it is met equally with strong support and strong resistance. This work is definitely not easy. It is at times uncomfortable, but it is necessary. On behalf of the RSAE board, we are encouraged by the work of Evanston's Interfaith Community Support of Reparations, and specifically local reparations. In this spirit of truth and healing, onward, and have a wonderful evening.
And of course was Dino Robinson and a few people I might have, I introduced Matt Feldman earlier. He's worked as a consultant with the Evanston Reparations Stakeholders Authority and is a member of Beth Emmett. That's who spoke right before Dino. And we're going to finally hear from Robin Rusimans.
Good afternoon. I wish I was there with you in person on this beautiful summer day. But today I'm in Tribeca, New York with other Evanstonians that have been working on reparations in Evanston. And we're here to screen The Big Payback. It's a documentary that has been released that details the efforts on reparations here in Evanston since 2019 at that historic town hall meeting at First Church of God Christian Life Center. I'm really here today to thank the Evanston Interfaith community for your incredible show of leadership and commitment to reconciliation and repair and reparations. Your leadership, your actions have been felt, they have been tangible, they have stepped beyond communities that have been engaged and really showed education and why reparations from a faith perspective, from a moral perspective, from a legislative perspective, and so on. Why reparations is absolutely in line with our values here in Evanston, and not shied away from the complicated and very uncomfortable discussion around reparations. And so I just want to say thank you. But I also want to let you know how your leadership and the milestones that we're reaching in Evanston have inspired the nation. Since we passed reparations in 2019, there have been over 100 initiations of local reparations as we're seeing it as from a legislative perspective. There have been over 400 examples of local reparations initiatives, and these efforts are all being mapped at the African American Redress Network's website, which is redressnetwork.org. So know that our bold steps in Evanston are making a difference, making an impact, and also helping support the goals for H.R. 40. H.R. 40 is a slavery reparation bill introduced in 1989 in Congress that has pretty much languished there. But now, last year, it passed out of judiciary, and this year we're joining Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee and her colleagues, including our own Congresswoman Jan Jakowski, in a demand for a executive order from President Joe Biden by Juneteenth of this year. And so know that what you're doing in Evanston is inspiring institutions, municipalities, foundations, with the great work of the Evanston Community Foundation under the leadership of Saul Anderson, in informing other foundations and how they might advance reparations by supporting grassroots organizations that are Black-led, by contributing to reparations movement to support remedies for repair, and so on. And so although we have a ton of work ahead of us, what we've done so far is absolutely insufficient. We also can't accomplish our goals for repair at a municipal level only. And so with all that said, be encouraged that we're taking the steps. We're beginning to see outcomes. We're beginning to see our community be transformed in supporting Black businesses more so, and being more conscious of tangible, authentic ways to repair the harms done. We have moved beyond the apology and into the very difficult work of reparations. And for that, I'm so proud to be here with you virtually today, and so proud to be an Evanstonian.
Wow, such inspiring
Yeah, sorry, Grace. Such inspiring words from Dino and from Robin and from Congresswoman Schakowsky. And I do want to recognize Saul Anderson is here from the Evanston Community Foundation. I want to make sure everyone sees him and his leadership. And of course, Pastor Michael Neighbors is here, one of our leaders in reparations here in Evanston, who can be here today, but is heading off to New York to be part of the Tribeca Film Festival. Usually Pastor Neighbors is leading these events and speaking at these events, but today we're taking that lead and to show that our communities are in support of reparations and for you to take it in. The Evanston Interfaith Clergy and Leaders has written a statement about why we are supporting reparations and what reparations means to all of us. I have here with me Grace and Matthew from the First United Methodist Church pastor, and Michael Wolf from Lake Street Church, and the three of us, and I'm Andrea London, Rabbi Beth Em at the Free Synagogue. We're going to read our statements, and then at the end, we will have all of the congregations that have already committed to participating in this reparations effort to sign. But that's already agreed to, meaning we're hoping that this is just going to be the beginning of many more communities. So if you are here and your community is not represented, you go back to your pastor and you say, hey, wait a second here, your religious leader, and say, we want to be part of this as well, because this is really a powerful and important effort.
Contrary to much historical narrative, the harm to Black Americans did not end with emancipation. Jim Crow laws in the South and the government-designed segregation nationwide continued for more than 100 years after 1865. Their effects are still felt today in the disparities of wealth, including decreased values of Black-owned property and the lower and declining share of Black home ownership. None of the anti-poverty programs or laws banning discrimination in housing or employment have addressed the root causes of racism, only some of the symptoms. For more than 50 years, a faith-based movement has been growing in this country in support of reparations for Black Americans. The movement began in part with the 1969 Black Manifesto that asked Christian churches and Jewish synagogues to contribute $500 million as an act of good faith and true repentance. The concept of reparations has recently gained new momentum from the notoriety afforded by the 2020 murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery. Partly as a result, an increasing number of white Americans have become aware of the enormous disadvantages for people of color in their access to housing, healthcare, nutrition, education, and job opportunities, and especially in their treatment by law enforcement and their disproportionate incarceration. The intention of reparation is twofold. One, to acknowledge and compensate for the harm that pervasive structural racism has caused to our society and to individuals. And two, to move forward by reconciling ourselves with our past. This is important for all Americans, not just for Black Americans.
Reparations will not alone close the wealth gap for Black Americans. No amount of money could adequately compensate for 400 years of systemic subjugation. Reparations first focus on formally acknowledging collective responsibility for past wrongs and their continuing effects. Funds paid under reparations are a means to acknowledge past wrongdoing and attempt to reverse its effects in the present, knowing that we cannot reverse all the harm done. The Evanston City Council passed 2 ordinances supporting reparations. The first acknowledged the systemic racism present in the city's residential zoning between 1919 and 1969. And the second established a method to pay reparations of up to $10 million through allocation of cannabis tax receipts. The first voucher recipients were selected in December of 2021 and were focused on restorative housing. A companion nonprofit, the Evanston Reparations Community Fund, has been created to build an endowment so that reparations can continue after the city funding is exhausted. The fund is also not subject to restrictions faced by municipalities paying reparations to their Black residents. Other cities have begun to follow Evanston's lead. The Chicago City Council has discussed, but has not yet passed, a resolution to establish a commission to consider reparations. In addition, 11 mayors, including those of Los Angeles and St. Louis, have formed a working group to advance reparations in their cities. Other cities or counties, such as Amherst, Massachusetts, and Kalamazoo, Michigan, have passed reparations ordinances, and others are in progress. Additionally, H.R. 40 has been introduced in the House of Representatives in every session of Congress since 1989. In every session of Congress since 1989. In 2021, for the first time, it progressed through the Judiciary Committee, and Senator Cory Booker introduced a companion bill, S-40, in the Senate. Both call for the creation of a commission to study reparations for Black Americans.
So what can the Evanston Interfaith clergy and leaders and all of us do to support the reparations effort here in Evanston? And these are the commitments that we are making as a faith community, and then representatives of all of these communities are going to sign the document indicating our commitment to these efforts. Reparations is more than financial compensation. It's an opportunity to educate and address structural racism and begin the work of repairing the psychic, economic, emotional, and physical damage that racism has caused Black Americans. To this end, we feel that we as religious leaders have moral suasion and responsibility to lead in this area by figuring out a process of reconciliation and atonement and helping to lead our community towards healing. Number 2, we can educate our community about the history of racism in our country, including the racism right here in our own community. To this end, we are collecting videos of programs conducted at Evanston area religious institutions to share with each other and our communities. We also believe it's important to enhance the education efforts in our community by collectively creating more programs for all of us to share. These may include, but are not limited to, storytelling programs in which Black residents can share their stories of discrimination and white residents can share their stories of privilege. We can learn about racism in Evanston through the work of Shorefront Legacy Center and its director, who we heard from, Dino Robinson. And congregations can share the history of racism in their own communities. Number 3, educate our community about the reparations efforts in Evanston, including understanding how the 2 funds, the City of Evanston Fund and the Reparations Community Fund, will raise funds, how those funds will be distributed, and who has the authority to make decisions about fund distributions. 4, raise money to support the reparations effort in Evanston, including for the Evanston Reparations Community Fund, which is the fiscal agent for the reparations stakeholders of Evanston. In January 2023, we will gather together again and total and celebrate contributions and pledges made through our efforts and encourage that support to be ongoing. The communities that have signed on to this effort already and who we're going to invite to come up and to sign over here on our poster board are Beth Emet Free Synagogue, Buddhist Council of the Midwest, Evanston Baha'i Community, Evanston Friends Meeting, First Congregational Church of Evanston, First United Methodist Church, Grace Lutheran Church, Emmanuel Lutheran Church, Jewish Reconstructionist Congregation, St. John's Evangelical Lutheran Church in Wilmette, Lake Street Church of Evanston, St. Luke's Episcopal Church, Northminster Presbyterian Church, St. Paul's Lutheran Church, United Catholic Youth Ministries, Catholic parishes, and the Unitarian Church of Evanston. And we hope that this is just a start. So we're going to invite now all of the communities to come over. We have our shopping markers over here. And please sign as we're going to sing together. Thank you so much. As we're signing, and do please come forward and begin that process. Is that okay? As we're signing, members of the Unitarian Church of Evanston Choir have agreed to lead us in song. This is a song that is much loved in our congregation. It's a prayer. It's an aspirational prayer, a hopeful prayer. It's called "There Is More Love Somewhere." We invite you all to join in singing, and you'll catch on. It's a one that's easy to catch on to. And as we're singing, we remember that this is one of countless songs that emerged out of the horrors of enslavement and has and continues to empower the ongoing struggle for liberation. We also know that those who originated these songs were never remunerated. And so one way of making reparations, reconciliation, and repair is to consider paying for spirituals that you use in your congregation. It's something that we're striving to do in the Unitarian Church of Evanston. So, and we will pay royalties for the use of this song today. There is more love somewhere. Please join in singing. Thank you to the Unitarian Church leading us. Beautiful. Before we conclude, we have one more really exciting announcement. I'm going to invite Vanessa Johnson-McCoy from Evanston First Repair. And she has an announcement about the movie that Dino and Robin are now in New York to see for the opening of the Tribeca Film Festival. Vanessa, we have a special opportunity tonight.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I am Vanessa McCoy. I work with Robin Ruth Simmons at First Repair and a whole bunch of other titles that I won't go all into. But tonight, I'm here to make a wonderful announcement. Robin's church is my church, Faith Temple Church at 1932 Dewey in Evanston, right across the street from Fleetwood and the other one. Yes, Family Focus, thank you. Right on Dewey and Foster. We're actually showing the Big Payback film tonight at our church. So the doors will open at 4. It's scheduled to start at 5. And so there's no charge. We got some little snacks and water. If you want anything more than that, you have to bring it yourself. But please join us. Yes, there will be popcorn. There's popcorn and snacks and water. Anything else, you have to bring yourself. But we're happy to invite each one of you to watch it with us. And then tomorrow, there'll be a question and answer virtually that I still am waiting for the text on that. But join us tonight at Faith Temple, 1932 Dewey. Doors open at 4, and we'll start the film at 5. Thanks. Hope to see some of you there. That's so exciting. We just wanted to, before we wrap up and hear a benediction from our faith leaders, we wanted to acknowledge with this launch that all of our congregations, all our faith communities are in various places on the journey of reparations, reconciliation, and repair. This is another beginning. Many have been doing work for a long time, but this is another beginning. This event was created with the hope that we will continue building momentum and support throughout the year. And congregations are encouraged to continue signing on to this commitment and to raise funds in the ways that make sense and are possible for your faith communities. You may gather funds among your members, you may donate one lump sum, or you may encourage your members to contribute to the fund directly. If they do that, encourage them to indicate what faith community they're a part of in honor of your faith community. We do have on the flyer that many of you have, there is a QR code. So if you go to that QR code, that'll direct you right to the giving page. So we encourage you to do that. One other thing that we want to point out is that tomorrow, we just got this word today, and I think Alderman Ruth Simmons mentioned this, that there are action steps tomorrow. June 14th is a day of action for HR 40. I have a sign up here on the music stand if you want to take a picture of it. We didn't have time to print out all these flyers, but it's a call to action to call on tomorrow. It gives you the number of where to call to register your support for HR 40. We'd love it. Every single person here today took that number, made that phone call tomorrow, and flood their phone lines. Pass HR 40 now. Along with your financial commitment, we will continue to learn and grow together. And in January, in honor of Martin Luther King Day coming up, we're going to celebrate what has been raised through all of these efforts. And we're going to encourage ongoing contributions to the reparations effort here in Evanston and nationally. Okay, hold on. Oh, we got it. All right, we got it. May we continue on the journey until justice rolls down like an ever-flowing stream. Right? It's gonna keep on flowing like the juice in this battery. Yeah. Oh, you know what? Hold on. Okay, hold on. That works.
Is this okay? Here we go. Okay. So friends, the benediction that you are about to hear is one inspired by and partially borrowed from the great liberation theologian of our time, Claudio Carvalles, who has been at McCormick Seminary here in Chicagoland and at Duke and at Yale. His words were the beginning of this benediction, but hear it from all of us. Somewhere there is a home, a place of return and reunion, of restoration and reparation, of safety and security for all, a home of peace.
Believing in that home gives us hope and strength, but our home, our city is not yet whole. It is unfinished and out of balance.
For too long, we have worked to make the facade appear hospitable and innovative, but left the foundation unrepaired. The intention, inequities patched over.
But today we commit anew to work to make that home that is too long a time coming a reality right here in Evanston. To rebuild the foundation with equity and justice from the ground up. A community that is finally for all of us.
We are ready to rebuild and repair with our neighbors, with our children, with our parents, with our ancestors, and with you.
We know that what lies ahead is holy work, and holy work is often uncomfortable. It requires dedication not for a cause or a season, but to a whole new way of living.
For we are called not simply to let go, but learn. Not simply to acknowledge, but atone. Not simply to call out, but commit our lives and sacred honors.
The only way through this endeavor is through not relying on power we think we have, but ceding power to those who endure centuries of systemic, financial, legal, social, educational, and communal harm, who know what they need if only their voices were heard and their expertise respected.
We start where we are, which is right here. It's never too late to begin. There is no time to waste. Oops, like that? Okay, we'll start again. Sorry, we Quakers are a quiet bunch. We start where we are, which is right here. It is never too late to begin, and there is no time to waste. It is not upon us to finish the task, but we are not free to desist from beginning it.
But first, we must learn. Learn the harm of yesterday and today, and the roles that our institutions and our congregations have played in these inequities, and then admit what we have done and what we have left undone. Reparations begin in our houses.
That learning must be paired with material and public action to live our moral and ethical teachings, not just in our pews and pulpits, but in our daily accountability, on our streets and in our banks, in our neighborhoods and in our schools, amending and return to right relationship and actions which tear down the walls of inequity and reform us down to the very foundation, with justice as our new plumb line.
We therefore commit before God and of the neighbors we are commanded to love as ourselves, who suffer the oppression of our past and present failure, to the processes by many names, teshuva, or repentance, or atonement, the process of public accountability, apology, mending and returning to right relationship, to tzedek, righteousness, the ethical demands of material and legal justice.
We therefore admit that this will demand we change and commit and surrender, change our hearts, our minds, and our actions. Commit our time, our advocacy, our power, our money, and other resources of value, and surrender the power that we have clung to for far too long.
And so we pray to the very source of life and love, of justice and peace, for this work that must be done, for strength and humility, determination and cooperation, and the will to do instead of just to hope, to become instead of merely to wish.
And so we commit to remake this beloved community entrusted to our care and stewardship, to make it truly home for all, today and tomorrow and in the days to come. We invite you to join us when you can and how you can. And may God go with us all and bless our successes and keep us moving through our failures as we make this work of reparations, repentance, reconciliation, and repair the holy work of our generation, and empower those that follow us to bring it to fruition, more just, more whole, more fair, and more home. Let us all say, Amen.
Thank you for being here. Let us continue in the struggle for justice with love and with joy. Thank you.